On today's episode of Word of Mouth, we discover why you need to be uniquely you, how to take your oddity and make it your commodity so that as you become your true self, you see success come to you because it will be attracted because of the things you do. Today's episode, we have Ashley Burkeen, and she's going to share how she made a transition from who she was to how to be more uniquely herself and the results she saw from that. So join us on today's episode of Word of Mouth.
Get ready to improve your mindset, increase your skill set, and expand your network. Follow along as the CEO of Master Networks brings you over a decade of business networking experience. Welcome to Word of Mouth with Chaz Wilson. So he was walking around the green room area, but he was like, I can't remember. He explained it to me afterwards, but he was like hopping up and down. He was like pacing. He had his earbuds in, was listening to a very specific curated playlist. He had his colorful shoes on.
All in preparation to go on stage.
Yeah, in preparation to go on stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just sitting there in a chair and I'm like eyeing him out of the corner of my eye. I was like, I don't know what he's doing, but it's hyping him up.
Well,
so
he's got
I'll
a
let
routine,
him go.
right? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't do that, but I do typically walk all four corners of the room because I want to know what it feels like to sit in that back corner and look at the stage,
Right.
so I can visualize that when I'm up front. So I typically walk, especially the back two corners and then maybe the middle. And then, mentally I go through things, but I mean, everybody's kind of have got their own thing. You know, I think even athletes are like that. I kind of learned that when I was playing football is there's different like pregame rituals you go through that are unique to different people. Like they do, like Tony Robbins. I don't know if you've seen, but he has like a, you know, like those, what are they, like 2-foot trampolines?
Oh, yeah. Ken
like
Moskowitz was telling me a little bit about this. I think that's kind of where he got his idea for his pre-speech ritual.
Yeah, he warms up on a trampoline for like 5 minutes before he goes out. It's like he just jumps on a trampoline because he comes out and he's like jumping all the
super
time.
hyped, yeah.
But like the last thing you want to do is pull a hammy when you come out trying to jump, on stage.
Yeah.
So he's warmed up on his trampoline. But he travels with it and he takes it everywhere he goes when he speaks because that's how he warms up. So he there's these unique things that all of at least especially that I've been around that speakers to the context we were talking about, the speakers have to get prepared.
Well, and I love it because they don't care who's in the room. They don't care who's watching. They just do it and go because they know it works for them, and who cares what everybody else thinks.
Have you ever seen like a baseball player who goes up to bat, how some of them are so routine that the way they put their cleat in the dirt and dig their cleat in to the number of times they touch the bat, the swing, the pre-swing, like all of that stuff is a muscle memory ritual. A muscle memory ritual that speakers do as well. Like he's doing probably the exact same thing he does every time that he prepares himself to speak. So that leads to today's discussion about what are these things that make you uniquely you, and why does that matter, and why should you really lean into that? And so you want to introduce our guest today? Yeah,
we're going to have Ashley Burkeen on. You may remember her from a previous episode we did. So I'm excited to have
Except
her
this time we have her in person.
Yes.
We're excited to have Ashley here in studio in the Word of Mouth studio.
Yeah, excited. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
we were to have you on.
Yeah, we were talking about kind of this idea of people being uniquely themselves. And I know that you have a story of kind of how that became clear for you. You want to share that?
Yeah, for sure. So 2020, obviously a hard year for everybody.
Yeah.
But in the beginning of 2020, not due to COVID, we lost my cousin, one of my older cousins. He's in his late 30s. And he was the kind of person in the family where like you would maybe pick on him a little bit at the family functions because he was always like wild and off the wall and like beat to his own drum. But he was one of the like most happy people in our entire family because he did his own thing. He was authentic to himself. And so when he passed away in the beginning of 2020, it was kind of like, unfortunately, something that kind of smacked me in the face was like, okay, it's time. Like you have been trying to please people in business. You've been trying to please people on the PTA, right? It's time to be you. And that's what's going to draw people into you. And it was a job, I will say, to kind of switch that mindset. But since I've done that, and have become more authentic to myself, I've attracted more business and I've attracted more relationships that are important to me. And it's actually become easier to be myself and just be authentically happy too with that.
So I want to go back to something you just said. So why do you think, first of all, that you weren't being yourself, and how did you even recognize that you weren't?
Because it was a feeling. Like, I wasn't being myself because, especially the business world, let's just be real.
Okay.
There's this stereotype of like, you have to dress this way. You have to present yourself this way. In some industries that may be true for, but I really thought that I had to be like this prim and proper from head to toe. I couldn't be silly or my quirky self because that was not acceptable. And so I think just kind of, I didn't feel authentic either. It was kind of awkward for me. And I'm an extrovert. We talked about this before. Yeah. I don't know a stranger. But in that situation, I was very like closed off and not welcoming. And I was called intimidating before, which is so weird if you know me, like not intimidating.
Hardly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that like, it was kind of like, this feels uncomfortable for me to be this way. And then whenever I started making those small changes and becoming who I am, and standing in the truth of who I am, it was just so much easier to be myself, and I'm so much happier.
So was it that you knew who you? Because some people say, you hear "be authentically you." I get that piece. I mean, I heard Ed Milet one time say, "Make your oddities your commodities." Right. So, like, was it that you were clear about who you were and where you weren't being, or did you like have to discover that along the way?
No, I mean, I knew I wasn't being authentic to who I was because
so it was pretty clear right away.
Yeah. Well, I would say to people like, I have to turn on.
Oh,
do you mean I have to turn on? I'm going to do this today. I have to turn on. Or I'd get home and be like, I'm so exhausted. I was on all day today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's some of that, though, that happens just because you got to raise an energy level at times, right? But so what were some of the things that you had to change to be you?
Just kind of the way that I even like thought about myself or approached myself, because I'd be one way with obviously people that were close to my circle, but some of it was like doing all the things. So reading all the personal development books, writing the affirmations on my mirror in my bathroom, like this is who you are, and just stand in that and be that, not dressing up, but protecting and showing off the brand of our business just by wearing a collared shirt with the logo on it. And I've got a lot more interest in who I was in our business and as a leader too, where people thought I was more approachable, right? I was more relatable being that person. Not everybody in every industry wants to dress up. Not everybody in every industry wants to take it so serious where they don't feel like they can laugh in that.
Right.
Now, of course, there's a time and a place for everything, and know your audience.
Yes.
But for the most part, you should be able to be totally you and attract what you deserve because you're yourself.
Well, people want to work with and talk to people who are genuine. They don't want somebody who's faking it, or at least seems like they're faking it.
It's interesting you bring up the dress, right? Like, because this is a discussion I've had with people often. And I look at and you guys saw some of the early videos at Connective.
Yeah.
Like, it was always a shirt and tie and a suit for me, always. But that was because I think when I started in business, when I was young, I felt I had something to prove. Trying to sell homes and the biggest investment people make in their life, and I'm like 24.
Yeah.
I felt I had a little bit to prove there. But that carried for a long time. And then I similar to you, it was like, well, there's definitely a time for me to wear a suit. There's definitely a time for a shirt and tie and that kind of thing. But I found, similar to you, that people then had a certain expectation of me when I stood in front of them.
Yeah.
That closed them off a little bit more, or I felt I had to fight through it. It's interesting, like it's just a suit, but it was real. And as soon as I changed, and you noticed when I came to your region, a year ago was the first time I presented in person where I was wearing jeans and a collared shirt versus a suit. Yeah. It was interesting, but the interaction seemed different.
Yeah. Well, and they appreciate you for that too. I think it makes you a little bit more, again, relatable.
Approachable.
And approachable for sure. Like real life. Not everybody has a suit in their closet. Ask Ryan.
Well, I've got extras if he wants, although he's like, but it's just an interesting dynamic or component to think about, that visual. But yet, like if I go to New York City and I train, I'm wearing a suit.
Oh yeah.
But if I go when I just go to different parts of like Texas or whatever, I might wear a sport coat, or I don't, or whatever. So yeah, I think knowing your audience. What were some of the other things that you did that you felt? Because I want people listening to really understand what we're talking. We're not just talking about the way you dress.
No.
That's part of it. But what are the other things you did to be more you, and why weren't you that way before?
I mean, I think it sounds kind of silly, but like I'm a huge jokester, and I like to go for shock value out of people, appropriate shock value, but I like to go for shock value. And I really like to get people that are introverted, especially, to like open up and kind of see that silly side of them. And so a huge part of it was just like not being so serious, not taking life so serious, not taking myself so serious. Kind of just being on that positive focus. And it really was being positive about who I was and not holding all that negative weight of like, okay, what are they thinking? If I say a word in the wrong sentence because the vocabulary is wrong, like I can laugh it off and make a joke about it. I don't have to like dwell on it for the next 48 hours and be like, oh my gosh, you sound so unprofessional and not smart. Right. So it was really just the way I carried myself and just showed my quirky silliness and kind of let it be.
Right.
This is who I am. Let's joke and have a good time. You can have a good time in business and still be successful.
You should.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where you and I are similar, because I think I was so serious is a great word, right? Mm-hmm. I remember the first couple times I started training and I got a coach to go through how I train on stage. And we get done. There was, I think it was 14 of us. It was a 2-day event. It was very stressful because you have 14 people who are there because of this coach. These are all people who've spoken. Most of them spoke more than I did by far.
Yeah.
So I was probably one of the rookies in the room. And they give you one sheet with like take a training tidbit. Basically, you have to create a 15-minute training off the training tidbit. You can use visuals, you can do whatever. And then everyone in the room is sitting there, including the trainer instructor, and they're judging the entire thing from the way you walk to the everything.
That's incredibly stressful.
It was incredibly stressful. And then, so you train for 15 minutes, and then the next 45 minutes is the feedback.
Wow.
Now, for me, I was super excited because I only had really 2 pieces of constructive feedback, and they were good. But the biggest one I remember was they were like, man, we felt your passion. We felt all of that. You knew the topic, all the positive things. You didn't smile. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so serious about what I'm teaching that I didn't even smile. So people were like, man, you're a little intense.
Oh gosh, I can imagine.
You were a little intense about lead generation, okay? That was my topic.
It's a very serious subject.
I was like, yes, it's serious. This is what keeps a business going, right? So funny. But to your point, I mean, lighten up. That was the advice, lighten up.
Yeah, but really lighten up and smiling through it. I mean, obviously, we all know business is so up and down and roller coaster ride, right? And stuff goes wrong all the time. But I think like I found this art and just be like, it's cool, right? Yeah. And then laughing through it, or oh, there we go again. Can't wait for the next one, right? And so making a joke about it, but that's who I am. And I can't believe I held myself back for so long of what I thought I was supposed to be. It's been so much better being different. And wearing T-shirts and yoga pants, but with our brand on it, right?
Yes.
Branded yoga pants.
So
hey.
I know you just said like not serious, but I do want to ask you a serious question. Yeah. Do you think that part of what this is too is a way to carry his legacy on because you're living the way he lived?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that question because that really is what it was. And that's all he ever wanted from any of us.
Yeah.
I think we have a huge family, and he wanted that for every single one of us, just to have a good time and be happy. And I mean, that's how he made every family. My family, they do not have functions, by the way. They have family events. They're so big. So, but that's really what he wanted. And so I think I owed that to him, if nothing else. Yeah. Because I mean, he also was starting to get into business, and like we would kind of play that off each other or whatever. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself about him though, like, oh boy, you have a lot of professionalism you got to find, right? Like loving him, being my cousin, but in reality, he was a successful food truck driver or owner because he drew people in with that charismatic who he is, backward fitted hat, like. Let's feed some people, right? So, yes, I owed it to him, and I think that was the difference for sure. That's what the push was. Unfortunate, that's what it took, but that was the push for sure.
You had mentioned earlier that it was difficult to make some of these changes. What were some of the difficult aspects of being more yourself?
Caring what other people thought about me. I mean, that was probably the biggest one that just kind of trickles down to every avenue of what I was going through, like with the mindset of it, was what are people going to think if I don't act this way? What are people going to think if I do approach it this way? What will people think about me or the business or my family or my legacy? What will people think about that? And in reality, they probably aren't thinking about us as much as we think they are.
Right.
Right.
So where's the balance between, I want to take the other side of this discussion and argument. Where's the balance that you think between someone saying, well, this, you just got to live with it, this is how I am, versus improving, you know, like I was trying to think of an example. Let's just take language maybe, right? Like, I swear like a sailor. That's just, you got to live with it. That's just who I am. But in an environment that's probably not conducive to that, where's that balance of improvement versus just, you got to take me how I am?
Well, I think that's the improvement part, right? Like you don't just stop and say, well, I'm going to say whatever I want, cuss like a sailor, be rough around the edges, right? You have to know your audience. You have to constantly try to improve that next level of yourself, but don't lose yourself in that at the same time. Don't lose that energy, but know your audience, right? You know, if you're at a circus, you can act like a clown. And if you're at a business retreat, you have to be professional.
Right.
And so act accordingly, right? We're taught that at super young age. So,
no, I think it's wise advice. I agree. It's always about improvement, yet not losing who you are in that improvement. You're improving you. You're not improving you to be someone else.
Right.
And I think that's but I do find there are times where people use it as a crutch or an excuse. It's like, nope, this is just who I am. This is how I am. You got to deal with it. You know, this is how I am. Like those kinds of conversations don't really create a relationship. That's more of a standoff. Like, tough, deal with me.
Well, I mean, and we talk about a certain public speaker all the time that drops, you know, the curse words like it's hot. But that's part of their brand. That brand does not necessarily work with our brand, and that's okay to keep them separate, right? You do that brand over there, and we'll keep this brand over here.
That's exactly right. And there's an audience for that.
Yeah.
There's no question. There's an audience for that. There's audiences. There's events I've been to where it's a black suit, black tie kind of event.
Yep.
It is, or you don't get in the door.
Right.
That isn't because like they're proving something. That's sort of the thing they do. Right. Just like you said, maybe it's the swearing kind of, the speaker that's always on stage has to use it every other word.
Right.
That there's a place for there's a following for that, but it's not always, you know, what every
know your audience
piece
right?
is that. Yeah, know your audience for sure. So what would be your advice to somebody who's listening today to say, man, I can relate to this. I feel like I'm trying to be something or someone that maybe I'm not, and everyone around me pushing me to be this, or there's an expectation, which I think is the biggest part.
Yeah.
It's not about pushing, in my mind, being somebody else. It's more about the expectation to be something else.
Yeah.
How do they deal with that? What should they do?
I mean, it's honestly, you have to take it day by day. I didn't just wake up after my cousin passed away and was like, I'm going to do this. No, it was like, okay, baby steps. But I can start by the way I dress. That was super small, minute thing for me, right? I can start by being comfortable in my own skin in that way. And I can start by saying the things I want to say and talking to people I want to talk to, going live on Facebook and just being myself, where before it was, okay, I'd have to like do a 15-minute, this is what I'm going to say. I would still get off track, by the way, because you can't help but be yourself, right? Yeah. Especially in a live moment. But like, I'm going to say this and prepare. Don't prepare. Just be you.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah.
I think it's wise advice, and because my belief is the more you do that, the more you do find where your lane is and where you're comfortable. But sometimes trying to strategically think of, well, this is really who I am, and yet you kind of have to get out there to find that and find where you're comfortable and find your voice, if you will, in the way that you do that, especially if you're trying to be a person of influence in a positive way. You've got to get out there and do it. You can't just go, this is who I want to be. And yet, you know, again, Tony Robbins, we talked about him. He has often said that one of the leading factors of success is the way people see themselves, their own self-identity. Now, if your identity that you feel is in conflict with the way you're showing up, then that's going to cause struggle. So I think being who you are, we even talked about it here at the office. How could we create the office environment if you look at, was it about a year ago we changed up some of this stuff in the office?
Yeah, it was shortly after we came back from quarantine.
Yeah, so we just said what would make this a better environment to work more. So we've changed the way we do some of the things here because of that, to even make the environment around us more conducive to who we are more authentically.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure that, I mean, you are the 5, right, that you connect yourself with. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it too. If you're even in the business world or personally, if you're hanging around those people that make you feel like there's an expectation of who you have to be, probably time to find a new 5, or just be yourself, and those people get attracted to you. They come to you.
Well, maybe it'll make them more comfortable to be themselves. If they have an expectation of you, they probably have an expectation of themselves that they're not meeting.
Yeah.
So what's been the result of this for you? Like, it's one thing to talk about how you're, and I know you're still working on it because I know you, but it's like you're constantly working to improve who you are and finding that more authentic voice for you. But what's the result? How has it changed anything for you?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely helped me in finding my spot in leadership where I stood and being that person for people, like them feeling open to come to me about certain things and kind of taking my word on things because they're like, oh, okay, well, we can trust her. She's trusts herself.
Yeah.
Right.
That's big, what you just said.
So in the business, that kind of stuff, business obviously has been super successful, but I think overall, like, I'm genuinely happy. I'm satisfied and content with where I am in my life. And like, it's been a long time since I felt that way.
Yeah.
A long time. So I'm genuinely happy.
I love how, Ed Milet described, he called it blissful dissatisfaction. It was like being content and happy with who you are and what you have, yet dissatisfied in the sense of, I know I can still do more. So there's this drive, this like, I'm not satisfied with where I am yet. Like, I like me, I like where I am, etc. Like, I know I can improve more. And I hope that next year, if I met me, I would see me as different.
Yeah.
And so I loved the way he describes that. And it felt like that's kind of what the way you were saying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy, yet I know you, and you're constantly improving.
Yeah.
Which I think is the game and what we're doing.
Well, I think like anything else, like whenever you have the aha moment, and it's like, oh, I've got this under control. Like, you look forward to the next step because you figured it out. And so now instead of stressing about where we're going to be or what it's going to look like, I can be like, oh, we're good.
Yeah.
We're going to make it there in all, facets of our life. So
I'm glad you are more authentically, because you're pretty funny too. So I'm, like,
I'm glad you think so. I struggle with that. I think I'm funny. I don't know if other people feel that same way. So thank you.
Yeah. Usually we're fun. Like, I'm funny when I'm not at home.
Yes.
Nobody thinks I'm funny at home.
No, right?
And it's crazy.
I'm telling you.
The dad jokes just don't work anymore. So, Ashley, pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks.
Great topic. I think it's going to add a lot of value to those listening today who are struggling with this, because I think it's a real thing that people go, what are the expectations around me, and how do I really be uniquely me?
Yeah.
And so appreciate your topic today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. It's
Of
fun.
course, anytime.
All right. So what was your one takeaway from what Ashley shared today? I thought it was really good.
Oh, I love that conversation. There are a lot of takeaways. I think there's a lot to unpack there. But if you wanted me to pick out one, I think when she was talking about being comfortable in her own skin and being happy for the first time in a long time, that resonated with me personally.
Yeah.
I don't really set like New Year's resolutions or anything like that. I honestly think they're kind of, stupid, because you commit to this and then 2 months later it's just dropped.
Because people don't commit.
Exactly, because they don't actually commit. But New Year's resolution for me a couple years ago was to be more myself, or at least more open about being myself. And that was a couple years ago, and it's taken a while to get to a point where I'm just comfortable in my own skin, but I'm happy.
Yeah, what was
for the first
what do you
time.
think the one thing was that you did that you're like, well, I'm going to be more me?
I think so, y'all. I'm a huge dork. So I kept that like at bay for a long time, because you get teased in middle school for liking nerdy things. So I think it was just being more open about liking video games or playing Dungeons and Dragons or reading Harry Potter and watching Doctor Who. So just being more comfortable to share that side of myself with the world. And I think doing that, the rest came with it.
I love that. That's, again, if it's something you enjoy, that's a part of you, why feel the need to not like
right? And
that, right?
She mentioned the expectations that people have for you. You present yourself a certain way. Yes. I dress very nicely, and I hold myself a certain way, so nobody really expects that, or
right.
So, anyways, that's what resonated. Which,
by the way,
me.
those two things aren't in conflict.
No,
like,
they're
you can
not
be both,
exactly.
Right? Like,
so I think that's everybody puts themselves in categories, and you can only be one thing. You can be all the things.
Man, we're very complex humans. Very,
yes.
Right? So. And I think that's what Ashley was sharing, was that take the like I said, the oddity and make it your commodity. Mm-hmm. Like, how do I take this complexity of me and all the things that make my personality, behavior, all of that, and yet have it be me without living to expectations of somebody else, right?
Yeah, so I decided that I was going to be just absolutely unashamedly myself, hopefully, so that other people wouldn't be afraid to be themselves at the same time.
I know. I do find it fascinating that you said it's dorky, because I don't like. There's a whole show there. Yeah. Like, why put that label?
No,
there?
that's
you
true.
Know what I mean?
That's true. I'm still working on it. I'm improving.
Yeah, like, but it just is you. Like, that's what it is. That would be the expectation, as the label that somebody says you're this or you're that. Who cares? Like, it is what it is. But we do have time for a question today.
Yes.
What is the next skill that you'd like to learn really well?
The next skill that I would like to learn really well? Oh, gosh. I know there's skills I need to learn. I don't know that I want to learn them.
What are those skills?
I need to learn how to cook better.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I want to learn how to cook better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of skills I want to learn.
Like, I'm very good at a few things, but my range of cooking is not very good. Like, if it's dad's night to cook, the kids are like, "Boo, here we go. It's one of these 5 things. That's what it is. Just live with it." That's my oddity.
What's your go-to then? Your standard meal?
I mean, it kind of depends. Like, well, it depends on time, right? So, like, for a long time, it was I could grill anything, so that's just easy. Like, I'll grill something, or it's breakfast for dinner. Like, that's pretty much.
That's like, not a problem.
That's what I do with my kids. I'm like, all right, pancakes, bacon, and eggs. Here we go. And they're like, seriously, Dad? Okay.
Absolutely.
That's what I got. That's what I do. So I probably should learn.
I mean, cooking can become fun once you like learn to like not follow a recipe, and you kind of know things by heart, and then you're like, I'm gonna like take my dish to the next level. I think it's fun.
That's what I want to do. I want to be that person in the kitchen that has like a pot full of stuff and just a bunch of spices, and I'm like, oh, this sounds good. Yeah, I'm not at that level.
No, I mean, I did make some killer ribs for Mother's Day, but I'm just gonna say, but
it's okay.
Like,
toot your own horn. It's fine.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it was like, oh, we gotta have something else with it. No, that's pretty much the
no sides.
That's all I know how to do.
Sides.
You guys are on your own. We'll have waffles and bacon
and ribs.
Next week on Word of Mouth.
I love the environment. The environment's great. Everyone here is friends, and that's something that I love.
You look at all these things that are out there that are just sort of like normal day-to-day activities, day-to-day careers and jobs, and yet they've created a whole, series of shows around those. So yeah, people want to know what you're doing, what you're seeing, and what you're doing each day. I'm a business owner. What should I be doing every day via social media? Like, should I be posting every day? What's the frequency? Like, what should I be doing?